class want to position ourselves, out of the site, so kind of more to this area of the classroom. So as you think of a classroom with the side lights, I think you're talking about some of the classrooms.
Well, and some of them have glossary inside the classroom.
But we talk to the teachers as well, of having something to cover those areas, not necessarily all the time, but very quickly to be able to put something off a bulletin board right over to cover that as they prepare to get to that part of the corner as well.
We were just talking about that. Okay, is there any more questions? Did you have a question? You sure? Thank you. So that leaves back to you, Dr. Blanchard.
So over the past couple of weeks doing walkthroughs at the elementary and middle school, I had multiple opportunities actually to see writing in progress. So at the middle school, they have a new writing center, and students can go there. They can get help with their writing with a peer tutor or the teacher. And they also have a group of students who are working to compile student work. So they're making a literary magazine. So in that process, they're learning how to edit the writings that they get, the designs to go with the writings that they have gotten. So the designing, the editing, just putting the whole magazine together. And so that was the vision of Michelle Whittle. She is a middle school teacher, and then through a grant from the foundation to help fund some of the materials that they needed in that classroom. So that's been an interesting opportunity. Then I also was able to visit second grade classroom, Araby Collins. She was working with her students. They were writing their autobiographies. Now these are second graders, so it was things they like to do at home, what their hobbies are, what makes them a good friend, what they like to do at home, like I like to cook, or I like to help do this chore, what animals they have, things like that. So they did the writing and their proofreading, so they're also working on their spelling in second grade. Well, then they also did the speaking part. So they had small groups of like 4 or 5 kids in their group, and they each took a turn reading their little autobiography, and then the kids in their group could ask them questions. So a really nice opportunity for them to learn a couple of different components of ELA. And then last but not least, I was able to visit 2 6th grade classrooms on the same day. And it was interesting to me to see them so lockstep in where they were. So they had read a couple of different articles, nonfiction articles, and then they were taking those articles and writing a letter to somebody. So they had to know who their audience was. And they had to use evidence from those articles that they read to be able to explain to whoever they chose to write to what was in those articles, to give them like a full accounting of the story, kind of like Liz does with the newspaper here. So like taking all of that information in from the different articles that they read and then writing the letter out. So again, the reading, the writing, I don't know that they were going to actually read their letters to anybody, but like multiple factors of ELA. So in a nutshell, the last couple of weeks going out to the middle school and the elementary school, doing a really nice job with their ELA. Was also in to see a couple of math classes, so I'll have more to talk about that next month, and also working with elementary and middle school with our high school physics teacher, Brett Powell, who's been really helping to get the SEALS curriculum in good shape and really working with the teachers and the principals. So that is nice.
Any other questions?
Judith, can I ask you a question? Dr. Berry, I should say, I apologize. I'm sorry.
I'm going to answer.
You told me to call you Judith out there, and my apologies. The iReady, are we getting any clearer with that?
So I talked to Nick about that at our last meeting when we were preparing for the agenda. We'll have our next data point in January. So right now what they're doing with the original data point from September is they use that for some of their groupings in ELA and math. We get a report every Monday that we can take a look at, which I do every Monday, to see how much time our students are spending in their individualized pathway. So if I need help on X, I'm working on that in iReady during my 30 or 40 minutes of individualized work time. So we look at those reports every week. And then also teachers can pull resources off of there so that the kids can either work in small groups, in individual time, or like in their rotations for ELA or math. So we'll have data points for you January. So there's nothing, like there's nothing to compare it to yet.
Right. But what I was more concerned with is boots on the ground. I always say that because that's where it counts. Like you described, of the students getting the help they need right now from the okay.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah, so those reports that you can pull them at any time, but it's really nice on a Monday. I can pull those reports and look back over the last week, what percentage of our kids were on iReady for what amount of time. And then they can I can do it too, but they can drill down even deeper to see what resources the teachers are using, which classes they're using it in and where. So I will say it is a wealth of information and data that we're getting.
Oh, sure. And I was just hoping that it does personalize to the individual students.
Mm-hmm.
Good,
It does.
very good,
Yeah.
very good. Thank you.
Anybody else have any other questions? I'll be glad to hear. In my normal job, I had somebody that was not in this state, stating their child does not even learn how to write because they do everything on the computer now. I can't verify it, but I was just, it seems plausible, but, I didn't get that, but I'm judging by the conversation with the person that they were in an elementary school grade, and they're on an IEP. I always get it wrong. IEP. So they were having, the person that was with them, the person was always doing the writing for the individual. The child couldn't even do it, but they weren't even teaching. So I'm glad to hear that we've got some programs going on. So.
I can tell you in those ELA classrooms that I was in, the kids were handwriting their papers.
We've gotten so much with the computer, but I'm glad to be able to teach them. Not that I have a
Fun way to make it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Shirley.
So my presentation is going to be on food service tonight. It's going to be focused on the regulation side and compliance side within the food service program, what our school district and almost every other school district has to do to be a participant. So the first thing we're going to cover is what is the National School Lunch Program and School Breakfast Program. And it's a federally funded program which falls under federal guidance and is administered by USDA PD. So what do we have to do to be qualified for a National School Lunch Program? The bullet points there are we must provide a balanced, low cost to no cost meal to school-age children every day, and that's based on their eligibility standards, which are where it's free, reduced, or paid. So that runs through our point of sale, and they are being based off of that balance of low cost and no cost based on that eligibility. We must serve those meals that meet the meal pattern requirement. The attachment in there, you can look at, that just tells you how many fruits and vegetables, grains, protein. Basically, if you see our chart up, it says what makes a meal. That's broken down by USDA in that attachment. What else we need is must establish a non-profit food service account to be able to house the money we receive from the National School Lunch Program and School Breakfast Program. Once you meet all the requirements above, you're then eligible to get federal subsidies from USDA and receive USDA foods. Some of those foods are low processed foods, such as fruits and vegetables, canned goods, some protein and stuff like that. So we receive those on a regular basis. So the next thing we're going to do is describe eligibility. So how do students qualify and identify with the eligibility? So there are into three categories, which are free, reduced, and paid. So free falls under what we call express certification, which is the bulk of what is considered free, which is SNAP, which is Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, which is administered by the USDA and provides food benefits to low-income families to supplement their grocery budgets and cannot afford nutritious foods at home. TANF, which is Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, is helping children with low incomes and help with their economic security and stability. Medicare and foster are also in that list. The next one, income, is obviously based on, I've seen a free reduced application based off of federal income levels, either qualify or not qualify based on their household income and their household size. Household size would be, the scope of that would be both parents and children. So if you were a parent, mother and father and 2 children, you'd be a household of 4. Your income would be based off of household of 4. And then we have categorically eligible, which is mostly migrant or homeless students. They receive free. And then direct approval would be anybody that fell in the other 3 categories that we could identify here at Littlestown. And then reduced for PDE, they now regard that as free. So anybody who qualify reduced receives the same benefits as free through PDE. And they meet the same criteria as free, but they have a little bit of different markers, specifically on income. The income thresholds are different for reduced. And then obviously paid if you had no application or if you were denied based on income from free or paid. So then this chart here, it shows the historical, the past 8 years of free and reduced levels here at Littlestown. You can see historically we've been hanging around the 60 to 65 mark for paid, the 30 to 35 mark for free, and about the 4% mark for reduced. This is pretty typical for a lot of school districts in this area. Like I said, that's just pretty typical for us historically here. We're going to jump into revenue side of food service. This is where some more compliance aspect comes in. So all revenue from the sale of program and non-program foods, and at the bottom there, program foods is any qualified food that is through national school lunch or school breakfast. So what I said, what makes a meal, those reimbursable meals are considered program food, and then non-program food is anything that's obviously not a program food. Typically, these are a la carte or adult meals. And the revenue says that all sales should accrue in a nonprofit food service account, and the nonprofit food service account falls under federal guidance. So that basically says any money we receive has to go into the nonprofit food service account, and that nonprofit food service account follows federal guidance. This is what Littlestown receives based on our criteria that was mentioned before. So we went over eligibility, and based off the eligibility, we get some incentives from USDA. So if you're less than 60% free and reduced, which we are here at Littlestown, you get those incentives at label. So USDA gives you 9 cents per qualified meal for maintaining compliance. So like I said, everything comes back to what qualifies as a meal and what can we serve as a qualified meal. So we get 9 cents for maintaining that qualification and maintaining our compliance for USDA. We also get 10 cents for lunch and breakfast in the same category, but from the state. And then we also get 20 cents if we maintain above 20% participation in the lunch specifically. So if we have a qualified lunch, we maintain above 20%. And I have a little note there that we here at Littlestown, in those 8 years, we have historically around 46% of participation rate. So that means 46% of our kids receive or go through the line and get a qualified lunch. The graph here below just kind of shows our reimbursement rates from this USDA, from the state and local levels. The top half is lunch, so USDA gives us $4.43 for a free application. Reduced, they give us $4.03, and the state supplements that. As we said before, reduced is now free, so they give us that 40 cents to make us even with USDA. And then paid, we get 42 cents from the USDA, and we charge $3.15 for elementary students and $3.30 for secondary students. So you can see that we receive a little less for every paid meal than we do from a free or reduced meal. And the same thing for breakfast. The state made breakfast free for all, regardless of your eligibility. So the state supplements anything less than $2.84 that USDA would give us for 40 days. So breakfast is free for all students. So any student goes to the line, regardless of eligibility, they will get a free breakfast.
When you say local, you mean,
That means parents.
Right.
Yes.
I was gonna say.
So the next aspect is purchasing, so what it takes to purchase the food to make the meal. So if any federal money that is used in purchasing of non-program foods or program foods, that then falls under federal guidance. So a little example there at the bottom, or I will just go to the second point there. Federal guidance applies to the entire food service account, even though revenue from non-federal sources is received. And the non-federal sources, as we stated, is state, and I put student meals, which would be parents paying for a eligibility student. So the example would be due to us receiving a majority of our funding through federal sources, a la carte and adults, which are non-program, regardless that they are received from non-federal sources, have to follow federal guidance. And I have a graph that shows what we receive here locally as source of revenue. The top one there in the gray is federal, the blue is local, and the orange is state. And you can see, it's pretty apparent, our COVID bump in there where the federal government gave free meals to all students regardless of their eligibility. As you can see, we've historically been hanging around the 50 to 60 mark for federal, 30% for local, and around 10% for state. So that shows that we get the bulk of our money from federal sources. So then we're going to get into the excess funds, which I presented to the FPS committee a few months ago on what we can use excess funds for. So USDA gives us guidance on what is considered excess funds and how you can use those. So excess funds is any fund that is above that three-month limit. And they can be used for anything operationally for improvement of the food service program, except for purchase of land or buildings. So you can't purchase a building or any land to expand that. That has to come from a general fund source or a non-federal source. Like I said, you can only limit to 3 months of expenditures. And the allowable uses are improving facilities and equipment, which PD gives us a nice long list of items they say are pre-approved. You don't have to go out and ask permission to purchase those things. PD says these are eligible equipment to buy. These are the most common items and large equipment in cafeterias. Paid lunch equity waiver, that is used for positive accounts, and that means here at the district, anybody who has a surplus in their account above zero can then hold lunches prices positive as long as they fill out that equity tool and it says that they will be a break-even point. And then we can improve food quality and we can improve operations. Mostly that's through personnel. And then here is our balance. Your balance, you can see pre-COVID, before 1920, we were hanging at a low balance of around 50 to 60,000 in that account. And then we have a bump, large bump, due to that federal subsidy. What's of note here is we are always 1 year behind what that graph says. So we receive the money, but we're always looking backwards. So that's why that graph is always 1 year behind what we're looking at. As a representative, it's about, we're estimating around 710,000, and we're looking to use the bulk of that excess funds towards equipment within the new middle school, high school.
While you're there, when did we take over Chartwell?
We took over Chartwell's in 2021, right at the start of COVID.
That would explain the increase versus us.
But now that you brought that one up, did our contract to provide a la carte, or were we asked to provide a la carte, or what?
We'll get to that.
Okay, I'm just saying, there's a reason we provide a la carte.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. He's not letting me.
No, I wanted to point out because
Yeah.
when we took over, there's a big spike, and that's when we took over. Chartwell took over versus the school district
Right.
running the
Right.
cafeteria and letting somebody else
As far
do
as I
it.
recall, it's part of the contract.
Yeah.
You can elect as part of the contract. So when we go through the FPS committee, the full board can pick and choose what they want in RFP.
But at the time, it was included.
Yes. So that's just the end balance, and then we do have it planned here at the district to spend the excess funds. And then lastly, the compliance aspect is meal debt. So we do, as part of the meal debt, the USDA makes you have to have a local meal charge policy, which is here is our policy 808. What they say as part of meal debt is anybody that wants to participate and receive federal subsidy, they're prohibited from denying a school meal to any student who requests one but does not